Everybody knows that having 4 moves that you can use effectively is kind of the whole thing in Pokemon. But what if I told you I'm gonna make Furret far stronger by only teaching it 2 moves? So hear me out. So not only is choosing the right 4 moves for your Mon one of the most important decisions you can make, but oftentimes many Pokemon suffer from what we call 4 move slot syndrome. A Pokemon like Metagross, for example, has a strong case of this in that it has too many strong options that you can never fit them all. But the Furret that I'm working with needs to only have 2. So first of all, looking at its stats, Furret is definitely one of the Pokemon of all time. 76 attack and 90 speed is about what you'd expect out of the cute little guy, but that's where the first move comes in. Scarlet and Violet actually buffed Furret in giving it access to the move Tidy Up. It uses its duster tail as a broom to clear the battlefield of any hazards, but more importantly, gives it a +1 boost to both speed and attack. Now that things are looking spotless, we can click Last Resort. So this is a 140 power stab normal move that can only be used if you've already clicked each of your known moves. Since we hit up the old move deleter, all we had to do is use Tidy Up and we're instantly able to pull out the Last Resort nuke that can be buffed even further with the Silk Scarf, plus Terra Normal for as much damage as possible. If we take care of opposing ghosts before we get this bad boy going, Furret can do way more damage than people expect. And today, we're going to try to destroy some people while also making sure the battlefield is squeaky clean. One of my favorite things about Furret in general is that it's going to murder you, but it's also going to look polite in the process. On this channel, we really have a fun time making, non-threatening Pokemon go crazy, and if that sounds like a fun time to you, go ahead and put down the lunch and click that subscribe button. It's free, it only takes you a second, I promise you will not regret it. Oh, what kind of burrito even is that? Anyway, let's go ahead and jump into the match. Alright, so my opponent decides to lead off with the fattest, most obese squirrel imaginable. They've got the Greedent, and look, if you've been watching the channel lately, you know that you should not sleep on Greedent. This thing will destroy you, and I am kind of afraid. Now, luckily, as I have an Alolan Persian, I'm able to go for a turn 1 taunt. And that's because I know that for Greedent to be able to do stuff, it needs to, set up some things. And as I taunt, they try to belly drum, which is incredibly frightening. Now, luckily, we immediately stop that nonsense, and now I also realize that knockoff is a pretty damn good way to also, get rid of what this squirrel can do. I go for the knockoff because I know for sure it has a citrus berry. If it's belly drum, it's gonna try to get a citrus, and we get rid of that immediately. So, squirrel without a berry, put the buddy on a diet, and that is probably going to be pretty helpful. Now, I take a double edge nicely because I got Fur Coat, which doubles my defense, and at this point, I can hit it with a little parting shot. I can, not only taunt the thing, but then the parting shot just, at least be able to help me out in limiting, by not getting destroyed by a squirrel, that's kind of the main goal. So, at this point, I decide to go into GlitchxCity. Now, I realize that I can set up my Stealth Rock in front of the thing, and see what this fellow wants to do. Now, it turns out to go for a Trailblaze, which does get a critical hit, doesn't do anything. And as they get a speed boost, you're going to need about 7 or 8 of those damn things to even, really get moving. So, not necessarily super afraid, but as the taunt wears off, that's when things get a little interesting, because it could theoretically belly drum here, but then I'm like, it doesn't have its citrus berry. It's not going to be able to get itself healthy enough, so I'm pretty safe to just go for a Stealth Rock. Now, I want to set those up, be able to break potential sashes, and just get the Lemonhead to get some value. So, it turns out they do have coverage and crunch, because this thing can be eating everything. It does drop my defense and gets the crit, so I'm like, this even when you think you've got this thing neutralized, it's a damn problem. So, GlitchxCity takes considerable chip, and at this point, I'm like, well, I'm going to U-turn. I feel like they probably just stay in here. But again, it's parting shotted. It's not going to be able to do too much unless it crits. And this is kind of a good example of a Mon that you can bring something in to try to set up against, especially with a parting shot. So, looking at it, this is a team that requires some sun. I'm going to first go into the Ninetales because I need to get up my drought. It's going to enable things like the Venusaur in the back. I've also got a belly drum Magmortar I'm working with, and as I come in on a crunch, it doesn't do anything, which is great. It does get the defense drop though, because this thing is just a Hax God for some reason. But now I realize that I'm going to fire off a Weather Ball. Now, rather than swapping here, I just figure, nothing really wants to deal with a Weather Ball. I can get some really good damage and, hurt some stuff. So, they are going to swap, save the squirrel for later, and as they bring in the Alolan Golem, Buddy is working with a crazy-ass magnetic beard, and Weather Ball in the sun is going to do a lot. Now, here's the kind of thing that I'm thinking they're probably trying to get going with this Golem. As I do a nice bit of damage there, I'm thinking it's probably Custap Berry, and they probably thought they could come in, live in attack, get into range of a Custap, and then, do some stuff with that. But it likely did not get quite in range for the Custap, or they just weren't carrying it. And then I can finish it with the Weather Ball. So that's going to be a dead Golem. And now as they bring in Sawsbuck, I'm like, you know what? This is kind of a problem. So I decided to, first of all, I stay in here. Now, I realized just at this point that this Sawsbuck is Chlorophyll. I set up my Sun, which they end up stealing, able to outspeed me and get a crit with a high horsepower. That's going to take care of Ninetales. And just like that, I'm kind of in a little bit of trouble. I enabled the Sawsbuck. I thought for sure it was probably going to be something like Sap Sipper, since they don't have their own Sun setup. But yeah, I make the thing quick without realizing it, and that kind of sucks. So I lose my Sunsetter for the remainder of the game. And I'm thinking that's probably not that big of a deal, because look, it seems like a pretty good time to try to get the boy with the cannons to get going here. So first of all, I know that they have the high horsepower, obviously. Thing isn't a horse, but it does have some high horsepower. And in order to be able to take that, I am going to go ahead and pull out the Terra Grass. I figure high horsepower is not going to do much. I can belly drum, and they end up missing the attack, which is great. I finally get a little bit of luck on my side. Allows me to go for a belly drum, and now with that, after a Citrus, I'm feeling like I'm probably in range to live a coverage attack from this thing. I know it doesn't have much that could be super effective, but if I can just, now pop a little flame charge on the thing, I can not only grab a kill, but also, just get that speed boost, and then all of a sudden, physical Magmortar is going sweeping, and that's at least the thought process here. So, while I could pop it with a Mach Punch and be able to grab a kill there, I really need the speed boost that comes with the Flame Charge. So, as I click the charge, it turns out they are going to pull out a Terra Fire, and that is not a good sight to see. Just a little forest fire going on over here, and Bambi's mom is going to end up killing me now, because they do have the Terra Blast. And in the sun, that's kind of the worst case scenario. You can't really prepare for that. You can be like, what if they're Terra Fire and have Terra Blade? Yeah, that's just going to kill the Magmortar. And that immediately puts me in a bad spot. Because, I don't have my Sunsetter, Magmortar's down, and I use up my Terra. And I am in danger. But I do still have a plan. And look, as long as there's a Furret in the back, there's a way. I mean, kind of. So first I decide to go into the Persian. I know that I should be able to take an attack from this thing, potentially. It doesn't have any boosts. And as I just foul play, they help me out a little bit here because they click the Swords Dance and then boom, immediately gives me more damage on my foul play. And that's going to be enough to kill it. So thank God, threat neutralized. I just gave them a chlorophyll, sweeper that almost just got my ass reverse swept by my own Sun. But down goes the Sawsbuck and that feels great. So with their Terra out of the way, that also opens up the game quite a bit for me because now, they go into the Noctowl and I don't know, Buddy has a very interesting team as well. I like the creativity, but also I don't know what this Noctowl wants to do, and so when I don't know what things are going to do, I click Taunt, because that's just going to hopefully stop like a Hypnosis and a Blunder Policy. I don't know, that's kind of what I was thinking, but they end up double switching. Now, they probably think I switch as well, so they try to get Venomoth in a little momentum position here, but as I taunt it, that's kind of a good guy to have taunted also, because now it can't Sleep Powder, it can no longer go for a Quiver Dance. And as the sun goes away, we're just going to have to see what we can get going. So I know that I'm going to be able to outspeed without this thing having any setup. I can click the Parting Shot. And this Persian is hilariously nice at being able to just annoy things and then swap out and come back in later and just, Parting Shot some more. So with -1 on the offenses there, I'm feeling like this seems like a perfect opportunity to try to get Furret in. But first, I can't really bring it in. I can't just hard switch it into an attack. So first I decide to go Uxie, and I'm thinking I probably just died to a Bug Buzz. But thanks to the Parting Shot, Special Defensive Uxie actually takes it, and this Lemonhead, while it was supposed to die, just stays alive for no reason. And I'm like, well, at least if they want, they're going to have to knock me out here. And while it does suck that I live that attack, because then one more turn of the taunt gets wasted, but they do finish me with a Bug Buzz, and down goes the Uxie, which is what we needed anyway, because I need a spot to bring in Furret for free. And he's the kind of guy that you can't bring into an attack. It needs to have a revenge switch in. So sadly, the taunt goes away, which is bad because now I'm kind of open for this thing to either Sleep Powder or go for a Quiver Dance. So first of all, I come in, I frisk it, I see a Wide Lens. The intel that gives me is that my ass is about to be put to sleep via Sleep Powder. But first, I can go for a Tidy Up. I say there's no time for naps when this place looks like a damn dump. We clean it up with a Tidy Up. I get rid of my own Stealth Rock, which is annoying, but at least I get the attack and speed boost that comes with it. But the bad news is that now I get put to sleep. So, the Sleep Powder obviously does connect. And for it, my long tail over here is pretty, not valuable when I'm asleep. So all I can really do is click Last Resort. Now I know that this thing wants to set up in the face of me, which Still, honestly, with the parting shot, it's going to need a couple quiver dances to grab a one-hit KO here. So I'm thinking as they do quiver dance in front of me, I burn my turn of sleep. And now with that, I have a chance to just wake up here. And if Furret wakes up, this moth is going to have a bad time. Now check it out. Since I had the tidy up speed boost, I'm able to outspeed and wake up and then just throw a load of stars at his ass. And that is going to kill it with the last resort, which is sick. Dude, the one turn sleep comes in incredibly clutch, because the last resort takes it out, and Venomoth neutralized. Now, they've got a couple Mons left, and as Noctowl comes in, it does not take Stealth Rock, but because, I tidied him up. But who needs Stealth Rock when you have a +1 last resort? Absolute Nuke is able to kill the Noctowl, and Furret is now faster than everything, and since they don't have anything that can resist normal, I am kind of in a spot where we just go ahead and mash A, and this Furret did exactly its job. And as Greedent comes in, this is the most defensive thing they have left, of course. But we've got some good chip on the guy, and a last resort is going to be enough to take care of it. And we are just destroying things with the least suspecting Furret ever. So final Mon is going to be Ampharos. And at full health, without any Stealth Rock chip, this thing, it is a bit scary. But guess what? It's not going to be able to live a +1 last resort. And that is going to be the end of the game. I do get staticked for the road, just basically for no reason. But we grab the satisfying kill anyway. And the late game Furret comes in clutch. This thing always seems to get shit going when you least expect it. And it's always just fun to be able to even click last resort. And we were able to make it happen. So that's incredibly satisfying. And Furret is sick as hell. But that's now going to bring us into game number 2. Look, if you've stuck around this far into the match, you have to click the like button. You're legally obligated at this point. And if you don't, you're dead to me. But also in this matchup, we're going up against one of the scariest team compositions possible. There's incredible threats over there, especially when I'm working with things like Furret. So, I've got my work cut out for me. But one thing remains. The Furret is not afraid, and this is a crazy match, so definitely stick around, and let's jump into it. All right, so this time my opponent is going to lead off with a Cinderace, and Bugs Bunny over here is not really the kind of guy I wanted to see, because as I've got Uxie, I'm here to set up Stealth Rock, and of course, this is the court-changing fella that can just put him onto my side, so I'm like, you know what, rather than clicking Stealth Rock, I'm going to go for knockoff. Nothing like stirring up some shit and just getting rid of items early. And as they do U-turn, that does half to me. I'm especially defensive, so I don't take it super well. But now they have to pivot into something, and they got a knockoff waiting. I got one in the chamber, and check this out. As they go into Gliscor, that has got to be the most satisfying Mon to ever see come in. Because on a knockoff, I get rid of its Toxic Orb before it's able to get it to activate. And Gliscor without Poison Heal is just an absolute joy to see. So Big Meaty Claws can no longer poison itself, and God, we love to see it. So I can now freely set up Stealth Rock, and I'm not really afraid of what this thing can do. As they go for a knockoff of their own, they're probably pissed off, like, hey, if I can't have my item, you can't have yours. They do get rid of my leftovers, but I set up my Stealth Rock, which is nice, because at least that's going to put pressure on the Cinderace later to, want to have to court change those over to my side. So at this point, I decide it's not really worth staying in here. There's not much that Uxie can do. And I've got a defensive kitty over here. So I bring in Puss in Boots, and as I come in on another knockoff, they get rid of my boots. So I'm just straight up Puss at this point. I get no boots on the guy, and that it is not that big of a deal. But I decide to just go for some chip here. I go for a foul play because I'm not exactly sure what this thing wants to do. But they have the Toxic, and this has got literally the most toxic Gliscor. It doesn't have its own poison, but it's got to be just a toxic stalling one with Protect over there. And, Persian being poisoned isn't necessarily ideal, but I also am like, that's fine. I can now just go for a parting shot. And again, this team's kind of built in a way to be able to pivot around with things like Memento and, Healing Wish, parting shot to be able to get positions with my sweepers. Now, I got 3 of them, aka being basically Pyroar, the Venusaur, and the Furret, but of course I need my Sun up in order to be able to get certain things going. So I decide, since I got a parting shot here, I can live in Earthquake if that's what they want to click. I go into the Ninetales, get that Drought, and they do Earthquake. Now, at -1 attack, it still does over half, which is, not ideal. But, I also can't really do too much of the thing, and I want to conserve the Ninetales. Look, I'm going up against a very scary team here, and it feels like Venusaur is probably going to be the win condition here, so I want to conserve the Drought in case I need to get it up later. And also, just knowing that another Earthquake is coming, I'm pretty free to just go right back into Uxie. So we float right above it, and now I'm thinking I'm going to Memento. Now they go for another knockoff since I already lost my item. I'm able to live it with 5, which is sick. As I Memento, I was kind of thinking maybe they swap out here. I kind of feel like they're reluctant to even want to have the GlitchxCity around that much anymore because it lost its Toxic Orb. So as I get a Memento, now this thing has a Parting Shot on it and a Memento. This thing cannot Earthquake its way out of a wet paper bag, and this feels like a perfect opportunity to go into the Venusaur. So I bring in the freaking Grassy Toad, and this thing, if you saw the Venusaur video from a few days ago, you should definitely go check it out if you haven't. But this is a physical Venusaur, so check it out. They decide to switch into the Galarian Slowking, and they come in on a Swords Dance. So they're probably like, oh, shit. Because, I mean, Galarian Slowking is a specially defensive tank. It's able to take special attacks, but what it cannot do is take a +2 Swords Danced Earthquake from the Venusaur. That's just going to straight up kill it, and that is exactly why we run things like physical Venusaur, because everybody expects it to be the standard special attacking set, and then an Earthquake comes and just destroys them. So down goes the Glow King, which is sick, because that thing is a damn problem. But they decide now to just go right back into the GlitchxCity. Not exactly sure what it wants to do, but it turns out it wants to just do some annoying GlitchxCity stuff. It just goes for a Protect. That's going to stall out another turn of Sun, which honestly is pretty important. I need to be able to capitalize on these Sun turns, and this Venusaur, it obviously requires that. So I can now go for a Petal Blizzard, and with the Swords Dance, that does just straight up kill the GlitchxCity, and that takes care of it. So we're over here losing some health from the Life Orb, but honestly going on a nice little tear with the Venusaur is very satisfying. So one thing is they can go into Rillaboom, which sets up Grassy Surge, which is fine. It would be honestly kind of helpful. It's not only going to heal me and negate my Life Orb chip, but also just increases damage on potential Petal Blizzards, and also I have the coverage with the Poison Jab. I got coverage on everything on this thing. I have the super effective Stab, Poison Jab. That's going to knock out the monkey, and just like that, Venusaur is putting in the finest of work in being able to, you know, clear out half of the team at this point. So here's the situation. The Sun does go away, and with that, that's not great for me because, you know, now they can bring in Cinderace, who can now outspeed me and just kill me with a Pyro Ball. So I'm kind of like, well, I have no reason to really stay in here. That's just because Ninetales is still alive. I can switch into the Ninetales here, be able to set back up the drought, and at this point, fully in this match, my plan is to allow Venusaur to just sweep the rest of the team. We've gotten the 3 KOs there. But as I bring in the Ninetales, they click the court change, though they likely expect to switch. They're going to put the Stealth Rock now on my side, which is annoying, swaps the old effects, but really not that big of a deal. Now, I go Ninetales essentially just for the sack, but I don't really have anything that wants to hard switch into this, so I'm just going to Weather Ball, and they decide to U-turn. So, gonna save the Cinderace for later. But one thing we know that is pretty nice at this point is that nothing really wants to deal with the Weather Ball here. So, they decide to end up bringing in the Iron Valiant. Now, this thing comes in, doesn't take any Stealth Rock, but it does activate its Quark Drive immediately via Booster Energy, does give it a Speed Boost, and that, I'm like, well, that could be bad. But here's the thing, Weather Ball probably kills, and it lives it with literally 1 HP, and that is not great. So, at first glance, I'm like, okay, it's not that big of a deal. But looking at it, I'm like, you know what? Venusaur, this is a huge problem because Venusaur cannot outspeed this thing even in Sun. I'm adamant, so I do not have the ability to outspeed it with the Booster Energy Speed. So I'm thinking this. I decided to go into Furret as a death fodder switch in. I'm like, you know what? Just kill this Furret. I can then just get something else in. But as they go for a knockoff, it gets rid of my Scarf, which is rude. But I go for it, and I'm like, okay, surely they just end up killing me here. I can click Tidy Up in case they want to switch for some reason, and guess what? They pull the swap out, because my thought is that they probably expect something like a priority attack to pick that thing off, and as they bring in Cinderace, immediately, Furret is now in the best spot imaginable. What I thought was going to be a death fodder switch in is now looking pretty sick, because I go for the Tidy Up. I get rid of the Stealth Rock on my side, which is great, but also I get that attack and speed boost. And with that, all you need is +1 on the guy. I am now faster than everything they have left, which is going to be of course, the Cinderace. They've got the Iron Valiant that can no longer get its booster energy. And then they have the very scary threat that is the Ogerpon. But first of all, I can go for the last resort, able to just immediately delete the Cinderace. Thank God for no Sucker Punch. But that is a very satisfying kill, and now they've got the 2 Mons left. So they can go into the Valiant, and luckily, no more booster energy for you, my good friend. And if you have any priority, that would be bad, but I'm going to be able to outspeed you and just click the last resort. Going to kill the Valiant. Seeing something like a Furret kill, like an absolute metagame problem that is Iron Valiant, is kind of the craziest thing ever. So that takes care of that. And now our work is not quite done yet, because the final Mon is going to be a Wellspring Ogerpon, and this thing is scary. So I'm thinking, you know what, I need all the damage I can possibly get. My Silk Scarf has been removed, and luckily I do still have the damage boost from the Terra Normal. I put the diamond on my head because Furret is iced out, and this should theoretically give me just enough damage to get a kill from full health. I'm able to outspeed it, no spiky shield, I can go for the last resort, and guess what? That is going to get the kill, and that is... It's got to be the most satisfying Furret ever, and we capitalize on the mistake of them expecting something like a quick attack to kill the Valiant, and now we just are able to capitalize on the mistake to let Furret destroy the rest of the squad. So that is going to be the end of the game, and I definitely did not expect that to happen, but you know, sometimes that's the way she goes. Crazy team gets destroyed by a Furret, and let me get a hell yeah in the comments. So thank you guys very much for watching. I really do appreciate the support. Remember to click that like button if you haven't already. It really does help out. And I'll catch you guys next time. Peace out.